it's not very good, is it? And I mean, that's putting it mildly. What's been so interesting is I regarded the advent of With Love Meghan rather like I regarded root canal surgery. It's one of those things that you know it's coming. You really don't want...
It was supposed to be her masterpiece, the one project that would finally quiet the critics, reshape her public image, and launch her into the Hollywood stratosphere. Not as a royal outcast, but as a respected global storyteller. But instead of applause, Meghan Markle's Netflix show With Love, Meghan has been cancelled in one of the most humiliating implosions of her post-royal career. Not paused, not restructured, fully scrapped, and the fallout is uglier than anyone imagined. Before we get into the chaos, make sure you subscribe. This is where we break the stories they don't want you to hear in this one. It's one you'll want to remember, because what looked like a heartwarming docuseries turned out to be a PR disaster built on fake tears, staged scenes, and emotional manipulation. And the people who were once lining up to work with Meghan, they're running the other way. It all began as a multi-million-dollar deal that Netflix hoped would mirror the success of Harry and Meghan's previous docuseries. Meghan was granted enormous creative freedom, a clean slate, the chance to tell her story her way. But once production started, warning signs surfaced quickly. Sources inside the project began whispering that things were off. Scenes didn't feel authentic. Moments felt scripted. Staff morale plummeted. But no one expected the revelations that were about to come to light. One of the first major red flags emerged when a production assistant leaked that a scene showing Meghan volunteering at a children's literacy center was entirely fake. Not exaggerated, completely fabricated. The children were not real students. They were child actors. The donations returned after the cameras stopped rolling, and the volunteers helping Meghan in the background. Her own personal staff dressed up to look like community members. 4. Netflix, a platform that built its reputation on original, credible storytelling. This wasn't just a breach of trust, it was an ethical disaster. Executives reportedly felt blindsided, furious that they had been sold sincerity but received deception. Internally, the term manipulative theater started floating around. One insider said, "We weren't making a documentary, we were filming a PR fantasy." But it didn't stop at one staged scene. In episode outlines reviewed by Netflix's legal team, Meghan reportedly made damaging claims about members of the royal family, including one accusation that a senior royal emotionally abandoned her while she was pregnant. When asked for proof timelines, emails, witness accounts, nothing materialized. Legal flagged the scene immediately. Netflix quietly pulled the footage, worried it could lead to a lawsuit from Buckingham Palace. But the damage was already done. Meghan's credibility was cracking, and Netflix was now being dragged into her personal war. Behind the camera, things were no better. Multiple crew members have come forward anonymously out of fear, describing the work environment as toxic. They say Meghan micromanaged edits, berated staff for minor mistakes, and often demanded last-minute script changes that contradicted earlier footage. One assistant admitted they were instructed to make her appear more graceful and wise in every shot even. If it meant rewriting history, the crew was falling apart. The editors were exhausted. Netflix was forced to bring in conflict resolution specialists just to keep the production alive, but even that wasn't enough. When planning for season 2 began, many staffers refused to return. Some sent emails citing mental strain and manipulative leadership. Others simply walked away. No explanation needed. And then came the moment that turned public opinion. In one of the show's most emotional episodes, Meghan is seen quietly crying on a couch, clutching one of Archie's toys. The music swells. The camera lingers. It's a gut-wrenching image until you find out she never cried at all. A former editor revealed that the audio of sobbing was added later during post-production. Meghan didn't shed a single tear in the original footage. Dozens of other moments were similarly staged, using background scores, lighting effects, and carefully timed close-ups to simulate vulnerability. Netflix thought they were broadcasting reality. They were actually packaging performance. And when you look closer, it gets worse. One powerful story Meghan tells in the show about being racially profiled at a grocery store was traced back to a Reddit post from 2017. Word for word, nearly identical in detail. Only now it was Meghan's story, her pain, her tears, her moment. Except it wasn't hers at all. It was stolen. Netflix's fact-checkers uncovered several other examples of what they called emotional plagiarism, stories borrowed from strangers and passed off as Meghan's personal truth. For a platform that promotes originality, this was betrayal. Not just laziness, not just arrogance, but the calculated repackaging of other people's trauma to build sympathy and clickbait moments. And for Netflix, that's where the line was crossed. As the controversy exploded behind the scenes, the show's actual performance on screen wasn't faring any better. Netflix's internal analytics, usually kept closely guarded, were quietly shared among top executives. Viewer retention was plummeting. After episode 1, over half of the audience dropped off. By episode 3, viewership had fallen by over 60%. And the feedback? Brutal. People weren't just disappointed, they felt duped. Online, even some of Meghan's most vocal supporters began to voice their discomfort. Tweets called the show scripted, emotionally manipulative, and painfully fake. One viewer wrote, "This isn't a docuseries, it's a love letter to Meghan from Meghan." And another, "I wanted to be inspired. I ended up feeling lied to." That shift in tone wasn't lost on Netflix. In a shocking turn, a confidential internal memo later leaked to media outlets circulated among the top brass. It read, "We can no longer treat Meghan Markle as an asset. She is now a reputational liability. Her content lacks credibility. Viewer trust is eroding. We recommend suspension of all future projects bearing her name." It was the kind of language that gets people fired. But instead, it got Meghan cancelled. Then came another legal firestorm. Several clips in With Love, Meghan featured footage of Archie and Lilibet framed as candid, unscripted family moments. But something didn't sit right. Editors noticed missing timestamps, missing releases. Questions about whether the scenes had been filmed with proper legal permissions. In some cases, even whispers that the children featured might not have been Meghan's at all. But stand-ins, if that were proven true, it would violate child protection laws around filmed media. Netflix's legal department jumped into action. Certain scenes were quietly removed. Going forward, strict third-party oversight was mandated for any content involving minors. Meghan's free reign was over. And perhaps the most telling sign of Meghan's Hollywood downfall came not from Netflix, but from the very people she once called friends. Oprah, Ellen, Serena Williams, Tyler Perry, even Michelle Obama, all were discussed as potential guests or interviewees for the show. Every single one of them declined. Some never responded. Others reportedly pulled out after reviewing Meghan's creative direction and the show's core concept, the term used internally, vanity project built on half-truths. One Netflix exec put it plainly, people didn't want to be part of something that felt fake. Meghan's reputation is too risky now. No one wants to hitch their name to her train. And if that wasn't bad enough, insiders revealed Meghan had demanded full creative control from the beginning and Netflix gave it to her. She overruled producers. She rejected editorial notes. She rewrote scenes in real time to paint herself in a better light. A producer who worked on the project called it a documentary by dictatorship. Every episode was shaped around how Meghan wanted to be seen, not who she really was. If a scene didn't flatter her image, it was cut. If an edit made her look too emotional or too cold, it was altered. The truth was sacrificed for optics. When staff pushed back, Meghan reportedly threatened to walk and take the story somewhere else. Netflix, already knee-deep in sunk costs, gave in, but the gamble backfired badly. Viewers weren't fooled, critics weren't kind, and even Netflix, once her strongest media, LA was done protecting her. And here's where things turned from bad to brutal. Asterisk, as the storm intensified, Meghan remained silent. No statements, no damage control. No behind-the-scenes apologies leaked to soften the blow, because what could she say? The truth was now out of her hands. It belonged to Netflix's lawyers, disappointed crew members, and a global audience that had stopped believing her tears. With the show's credibility in freefall, internal chaos reached a breaking point. Netflix executives, many of whom had defended Meghan early on, were now in damage control mode. A second, more aggressive memo was circulated among leadership. It didn't mince words. Creative freedom was granted. Oversight was ignored. And now we are left managing fallout from decisions we did not make. It was the corporate version of washing their hands of her. From a PR perspective, Meghan was becoming toxic. What had once been marketed as a fresh, unfiltered voice of modern royalty had morphed into something no one wanted to touch up. Carefully curated fantasy that collapsed under even the gentlest scrutiny. Hollywood, once eager to align with her brand, now saw her as unpredictable, risky, and above all, fake. One former Netflix producer admitted privately, "We bet on a symbol, a survivor, a woman breaking the system, but what we got was someone trying to rewrite her legacy in real time, expecting us to play along." And with season 2 now scrapped entirely, even Meghan's most optimistic defenders are struggling to spin the narrative. They point to jealousy, media bias, institutional racism, anything to deflect from the deeper issue. Credibility, because here's the truth. You can't claim victimhood while manipulating your own story. You can't demand empathy while scripting your own tears. You can't ask the world to believe in your truth when you're caught borrowing someone else's. But perhaps the most devastating consequence isn't what Meghan lost, it's what she never regained. Trust from viewers who tuned in, hoping to be moved and left feeling manipulated. Trust from collaborators who wanted to tell real stories but found themselves trapped in a woman. Image campaign. Trust from platforms like Netflix, who now see Meghan not as a visionary but as a liability. And worst of all, trust from a public that once saw her as a brave disruptor, but now wonders if they were simply watching the world's most polished performance from the fake charity. Scenes to the stolen stories, the added-in sobbing to the off-screen power plays, Meghan's project didn't just fail, it exposed everything she worked so hard to hide. The cracks in the narrative, the obsession with control, the need to be adored, even if it means bending the truth until it snaps. And now that truth has snapped back, Netflix isn't just canceling her show, they're severing ties, quietly, strategically, permanently, and Meghan. She's left with the fallout of her own creation. A show no one trusts, a brand no one will bet on, and a legacy rewritten this time, not by her, but by the very people who once gave her a global platform. The collapse of With Love, Meghan wasn't just a failed show, was a warning shot to the entire industry. A reminder that no amount of glitz, privilege, or carefully curated victimhood can protect you from the truth. Especially not when the truth is this damning. Because behind every glossy filter and choreographed moment, Meghan Markle made one critical miscalculation. She believed she could control the narrative forever, that as long as the lighting was soft and the music was sad, the world would never look too closely. That if she cried on camera, even if the tears were added, later people would believe her pain was real. But now, even her most loyal fans are asking questions. Even her allies are retreating, and the world is finally seeing behind the curtain. The scenes were staged, the stories were borrowed, the tears were edited in. And when challenged, Meghan didn't explain, she doubled down. She dismissed criticism as hate, dismissed questions as bias, and dismissed her own accountability as unfair scrutiny. But it wasn't scrutiny that ended her Netflix dream, it was exposure. Exposure of a woman who claimed to be transparent but worked in shadows. Exposure of a production that claimed to be honest but was drenched in artifice. Exposure of a truth that can't be edited, can't be rewritten. And no matter how many contracts or PR teams you hire, can't be stopped. Netflix gambled. They gave Meghan full creative control. What they got in return wasn't a story worth telling. It was a mirror into ego, manipulation, and emotional opportunism. And once that mirror cracked, there was no putting it back together. Now, with Love, Meghan joins a growing list of projects buried by their own ambition. The animation's scrapped, the podcast stalled, the brand partnerships cooling, the silence from Spotify, the distance from Netflix, the quiet from Hollywood. Meghan thought she was building a media empire. Instead, she was building a paper castle in a hurricane. And as the final credits roll on her Netflix career, the industry is learning a hard truth. When you build your platform on performance instead of authenticity, on control instead of collaboration, and on curated chaos instead of character, the fall isn't just inevitable, it's televised. So, what's next for Meghan? Another comeback attempt? A rebranding effort? Maybe, but next time the cameras won't be so forgiving. The audiences won't be so patient, and the industry won't be so quick to open its doors. Because once you're exposed not just as flawed, but as fundamentally untrustworthy, it's not just one show that gets canceled. It's the illusion of who you were pretending to be. And now, that illusion has shattered. If you found this eye-opening, if you're tired of being spoon-fed glossy half-truths masked as inspiration, then hit that subscribe button. We dig deeper, we ask what others won't, and we don't let the story end just because the screen fades to black. Because real stories don't need edits, they just need to be told.